Actually have Naturia action for you. It appears that some more magical musketeers have gone now, and of course some synchro goodness and so much more. Make sure you guys smash the little crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more OTS content. When was the last time that you have seen any real discussion whatsoever of Naturia doing anything? Because I'll be honest with you, ever since Sacred Tree kind of went to the wayside, not a lot of people have been exploring this deck. Actually, I think this has been considered a dead engine at this point. But of course, you know, we're back in action today. When I saw this list, I was like, this is actually kind of cool. You know, we're still using the camellias, the mole crickets, you know, the sunflower, actually having this in the main, along with the vein, are both incredibly good. But, you know, you're not going to be able to kind of do the stupid extra value of cycling that you normally wanted to do with the multiple sacred trees. And it's a little bit more unfortunate now, because we're kind of in the situation that we are with this deck. You are kind of forced to go look at the rest of the generic support that we've got going for us, and that's where the Ragnaraika stuff is going to show up to be this incredibly strong base for you. Now, which is fine, of course, the Naturia Blessing, but I also see down here we are doing what are 3 copies of this card. So activate this card only if your opponent controls a card in this set card column. Return all other cards in this card's column to the hand, and neither player can use the unused zones in this card's column. You can only control 1 sour scheduling red vinegar effect per what's called. This is actually kind of interesting. The fact that you can actually do this against a pendulum player is actually kind of hilarious in this thing. So I like this. This is actually kind of hilarious just for the interactions that you can do with this. Okay. And then, of course, I mean, the whole rest of this deck is going to be dedicated to doing big old Naturia plays, using those control aspects that this deck so much loves. I too love my opponent not getting the chance to play the game. Alright, we also have some magical musketeer action for you out here. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you about muskets. This deck does require a decent amount of time to play. The other big thing is we've also seen a fairly recent list out of the YCS that kind of shifted the idea of just tacking the Magical Musketeer mini Starfire here into Unchained, and you basically use the Magical Musketeer package to try to put up some extra bodies so that you could Fiend climb up in through the ranks. That is entirely acceptable as an idea, or at least getting to use that package to do so. What we've got here, though, you're actually going to be using the Magical Musketeer stuff as cards to basically, you know, control your opponent. You do see things like we are doing the 1 Cross Domination, the 1 Last Stand, the 1 Desperado, and of course the 1 Dancing Needle. So you are actually playing the in-archetypal cards to support you going through this, but you're also not branching out and doing like 2, 3, you know, copies of these. No. We're just doing them as one-ups, as things for us to search. And yes, we are also playing the copy of Fiendsmith Sanctum here, because getting the option to get a free monster, get a trigger-free search, special summon, you know, whatever we need to do off of this little package is incredibly good. And of course, you got to remember we are also getting to play the free Fiendsmith cards in this deck, because remember, one of these turns into the free unload of this, and then the free Requiem, and then you're able just to kind of branch through the rest of the lines of play. Also, interestingly enough, this build was playing triple Ultimate Slayer built into the main deck, by the way, which means, you know, they have them along here. I assume that they were playing an aggregator. I love when these duelists choose not to show their side decks. Some secret tech out here. Really, 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 really important. But I think everything you've got is present here. You know, you have your Unchained package. You're able to go through all of the lines of play that you need to. I think everything looks about as solid as you're going to get for a deck like this. Ooh, we have some Synchro action for you here. Now, for everything that I have kind of observed for this format and everything that we've kind of been going through, this deck is still pretty strong in the rogue category. I think just a lot of people just choose not to play it right now because the payoff doesn't really feel all that good. You know, you're kind of in that situation that you look at a deck like this and you're like, hey, we can do some cool things. You know, we can climb up, do the standard synchro boards. Full Wars is going to be a little bit annoying for you to deal with, but that's fine. I mean, it didn't stop people from playing Maxi. You're playing all of the huge boss monsters, man. You got the Blazar, you got the Quasar, you got the shooting majestic star dragon in here. You got the whole squad of the big dragon boys coming in here so that you can go through these power cards and punish your opponent. I also see we are doing the Synchro over top as well. I mean, this was what, a free target any number of level 7 or 8 dragon synchro monsters in your graveyard, special summon them and defense them, but their levels become 1 and their effects are negated. And you cannot special summon monsters, or you cannot special summon synchro monsters, or cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except for synchro monsters. And when you control a synchro monster, will be destroyed by batting banish this card from your graveyard, special summon a Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. Well, that's actually pretty broken. I think this card is actually pretty strong, but I mean, this is how you know, they used in the anime the ability to cheat out all of the synchro monsters so that you could technically synchro into the big old or the big old shooting Quasar dragon back in my day when we could do this. Also, shout out to the adventure package, the only real place besides Phantom Knights that you'll still find this package, being somewhat meta relevant in here, but like the fact that we have 2 targets we can actually search off of this instead of, you know, relying on some of the other stuff within the choice of the meta to do the thing. All right, next up here we have some Mimighoul action. Now, there have been a lot of Mimighoul decks, actually. Dominus Impulse has not stopped this deck from actually functioning, which is kind of hilarious, actually, because we're kind of in that really weird situation right now where Dominus Impulse literally is wrecking this format and this deck. I love it so that when my opponent hands me Earth Monsters, they cannot choose to play the game whatsoever. You also do see here that we are using this very strong Kashtira base in here. We're still doing the 2 Unicorn with the 1 Fenrir. And then, of course, we are doing 1 copy of Raceloth. Pretty standard stuff. You want to make sure that, you know, you can get those level 7s rolling. And also, you know, you kind of have that little power flow going here. You also do see that we are doing the triple fairy in here. The extender power of this is incredibly good. Armor, not so much. Same thing with the slime as one of here. You're still doing those because Archfiend and Dragon are still the best choices that you could have going for you here. I do see down here in the extra deck we are doing 2 copies of Giant Mimighoul, 1 copy of the Throne Maker, which is fine, and then of course 1 copy of the Embodiment of Crime to flip something up. This really just depends on how good your hand is. And I also do see this build is playing a copy of the Silo Hat Rabbit in here. I see that we have reached the point in this deck that having good cards like this are actually accessible. And of course, hey look, a Threatening Roar and a Different Dimension Ground, because we are playing Thrust. It's also kind of nice that this deck has some extra Thrust targets to be able to pop into. I mean, the Mimighoul room is a very cool choice in addition to, you know, the good old tack talents, but this is, I would say, probably one of the more interesting variations that I've had the chance to see for Mimighouls. If you're looking for a Mimighoul list to try, honestly, this might be the build to test, because I've seen so many ideas with Mimighoul. They just really have not really tickled my fancy all that much. They just kind of struggle out here to kind of do the thing. Outside of that, yeah, looks like a normal day in the office. Ooh, we have Mermail for you. So if you've wanted the deck to kind of work your brain and go through the combo lines, I feel like Mermail is that deck. All right, we are doing triple copies of the Abyssine, of course, the triple Deep Sea Minstrel, which is good. But this was the tech choice that definitely kind of stood out. So now remember the Fishborg Harpooner. So you can reveal this card in 1 water monster from your hand, special summon 1 of them, and discard the other. Now you can only use this effect of Harpooner once per turn, but if this card is sent to the graveyard as material for a Synchro monster, you can negate the effects of 1 effect monster your opponent controls till the end of this turn. So not only do you get an extender here, you get the ability to potentially blink something of your opponent's if you're making a Trishula, which is kind of funny, actually. Chain blocking the Trishula, so your opponent can't negate it. The ideas that I have out here. But that's just one of those really, it could come up scenarios, but you never really think about it. I mean, if outside of that, I mean, it's also another level 4 that you can kind of toggle on into the shark, so you can tote it on up, so you know, you have those defensive lines against your opponent. No real struggle or anything needed. But outside of that, very, very awesome to see how these OTS championships have come along. I gotta tell you, there have been so many incredibly interesting lists as of late that, you know, even though this meta is about to shift for probably the worst going into Dreadnator format, you have so many people that are just genuinely excited just to play the game right now. And I think that's actually a really cool thing. So please leave a comment down below, tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here later in the day, guys. Peace. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.